I never thought that paying off the final mortgage payment on my son's house would be the beginning of my own isolation. There I was at the Miami port terminal, my canvas tote bag filled with sunscreen, passport in hand, and my heart racing like I was 20 again. It was August 7th, the departure date for our family cruise. Or so I thought until my phone buzzed with a text message. "You won't be joining us on the cruise. Olivia prefers it to be just family. From my son. From Michael." I read that line 3 times. Just family, as if I didn't count. I looked up, and there they were, Michael and Olivia on the ship's deck, waving as if it were a postcard. Not a goodbye, but a declaration. I stood alone at the terminal, my smile frozen like someone who hasn't yet decided if they're dreaming or falling into a pit. The worst part wasn't the abandonment. It was knowing that just a month ago, I had finished paying off their mortgage. With my name still on the deed. Yes, me, the same woman who co-signed because they couldn't qualify on their own. The same woman who baked carrot cake every Sunday so Michael would visit. The same woman who welcomed Olivia with a smile. Even though from the beginning, she looked at me like I was speaking another language. And now I was in the way. I returned home with dry eyes. Crying, no. I don't waste tears on betrayals disguised as preferences anymore. I just felt that old familiar ache in my chest, the one you ignore when you love too much. The canvas bag I'd packed for the cruise sat untouched by my front door for 3 days. Inside was a coral sundress I'd bought specially for our first dinner together on the ship. I'd imagined us toasting with wine glasses, taking pictures with my granddaughter Lily on the deck at sunset. Now my only toast would be with myself and a cup of chamomile tea. "You're being dramatic, Emily," I whispered to myself as I finally unpacked the bag, folding the sundress with its price tag still attached. "It's just a cruise." But it wasn't just a cruise. It was the culmination of years of small rejections moments when I'd been slowly pushed to the periphery of my son's life. Barbara found me the next morning on my porch, staring at the Boston skyline from my modest apartment. We'd been friends since our teaching days at Lincoln Elementary 30 years ago. "I've been calling you since yesterday," she said, settling into the chair beside me. "What happened to the cruise? Weren't you supposed to be waving from a ship right now?" I handed her my phone with Michael's text still open. Her face darkened as she read. "That little? And after everything you've done for them, it's fine?" I said automatically, the way mothers do when it isn't fine at all. "It is absolutely not fine," Barbara insisted. "Did you call him back?" "What did he say?" "Nothing. I haven't called or texted." "What would I say, 'Please let me be part of your family'?" My voice cracked on the last word. Barbara took my hand. "Emily Smith, you are the strongest woman I know. You raised that boy alone after Robert died. You worked 2 jobs to put him through college. And now he's letting his wife dictate whose family." I nodded, tears finally threatening to fall. "I just don't understand when I became an outsider. When did I become someone they needed to escape from?" Barbara's eyes narrowed. "How much of their house did you pay for?" And there it was, the question that had been gnawing at me since I stood alone at that port terminal. That evening, I pulled out the folder where I kept all the house documents, the deed, the transfers, the notary papers. Everything was still in my name. I had co-signed the mortgage 5 years ago when Michael and Olivia fell in love with that colonial in Beacon Hill. They couldn't qualify for the loan on their own. Michael had just started his job in finance, and Olivia's marketing career was still building. "It's just temporary, Mom," Michael had assured me. "Just until we build our credit. We'll refinance in a year and get your name off." 1 year became 2, then 3. Every time I gently brought it up, there was a reason the interest rates weren't favorable. They had other expenses. Olivia was pregnant with Lily, and each year, when the property tax bill came, it somehow ended up in my mailbox, not theirs. And each year, I paid it without complaint, adding it to the mental ledger of things mothers do for their children. As I spread the documents across my kitchen table, the steam from my tea fogged my glasses. I thought of all the times I'd visited their house, always with an invitation, never dropping by unannounced. I remembered how Olivia would subtly rearrange the seating at dinner parties so I wasn't next to them, how my birthday gifts to Lily were always opened after I left, the way conversations stopped when I entered the room. The signs had been there all along, small discourtesies that I excused as the awkwardness of blended families. But now, with that text message still burning in my mind, just family, I was starting to see a pattern. I picked up my reading glasses and examined the deed more carefully. Yes, legally I was still co-owner. I had put down the 20% down payment, $120,000 from my retirement fund. I had covered 3 years of back taxes when they were going through a rough patch. I had paid for the new roof last year when the old one started leaking. And yet, there had never been a dinner, a toast, a family photo that included me. The coral dress still hanging in my closet was tangible proof of that final exclusion. When you love, you don't count, I whispered to myself. But tonight, with the calm that only comes after heartbreak, I'm counting. I took out a notepad and began to write. Not emotions, facts. Deed still in my name. Mortgage paid off with my pension. Estimated contributions, $200,000 over 5 years. I had never done this accounting before because when you love, you give. But that night, I told myself, enough. This time there would be no scene, no pleading, no tears, just a silent decision and a plan. 2 days after the ship sailed, I checked my email out of habit. There it was, an alert from my American Express card. Charge approved $628. Cape Spa renewal. Royal Serenity deck. I had to read it twice. The charge was on the card I'd used to reserve the cruise, a card I'd given Michael access to for emergencies. Not only had they excluded me, not only had they erased me, they were using my money. $628, so Olivia could be pampered with essential oils while I boiled rice in my kitchen. That's when something inside me changed. It wasn't sadness or disappointment anymore, it was something else. A cold, precise clarity. Like when you realize it wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. I turned off my computer, found the physical card in my drawer, and with a steady hand, I dialed the number. American Express, how can I help you? I want to cancel my card and dispute the spa charge. I didn't authorize it. The operator asked if I had lost my card. I lied. Yes, I lost trust. That was my first action, small but decisive. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. There was a strange energy thrumming through me, a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I made my coffee stronger than normal and sat at my kitchen table. The house documents still spread before me like a battle plan. My phone rang. It was Sarah, my younger sister. Mom said you didn't go on the cruise, she said without preamble. What happened? I explained about Michael's text, the waving from the deck, the spa charge. Sarah made sympathetic noises, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice. Well, maybe Olivia just wanted some alone time with Michael. You know how stressful it can be, trying to manage family dynamics. Sarah, I interrupted, they used my credit card for a spa treatment after telling me I wasn't welcome because I'm not family. A pause. That's not right, she admitted. But still, they're young. Maybe you're being a little sensitive. Family is complicated. I felt that familiar pressure to accommodate, to understand, to be the bigger person. But something had shifted in me. Family isn't complicated. Sarah, family doesn't leave you standing alone at a port. Family doesn't smile from the deck while you swallow your shame at the terminal. After we hung up, I looked at the documents again. I had been making excuses for their behavior for years, justifying every slight, every exclusion. But that text message, those 2 words, just family, had ripped away the veil. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found one I hadn't called in years. Richard Martinez, attorney at law. Richard's office hadn't changed in the decade since he'd handled Robert's estate after my husband died. The same leather chairs, the same framed law degree, the same smell of old books and authority. Emily, he said warmly, rising to greet me. It's been too long. How's Michael? I placed the folder of documents on his desk. That's why I'm here, Richard. I need to understand my rights. Richard's eyebrows rose slightly, but he said nothing as I explained the situation. He listened carefully, occasionally making notes, his expression giving nothing away. When I finished, he opened the folder and examined the deed. "Well," he said finally, "legally, the situation is quite clear. You are the co-owner of the property. You provided the down payment. You've been paying the taxes, and the mortgage has been paid off. With your funds." He looked up at me. "What exactly do you want to know, Emily?" I took a deep breath. "Can I sell the house?" Richard blinked, the only indication of his surprise. "Without Michael and Olivia's permission? You mean—" "Yes." He leaned back in his chair, considering. "The short answer is yes. As a co-owner on the deed, you have the right to sell your interest in the property. Given that you've contributed significantly to the purchase and maintenance, perhaps more than your share, you would have a strong case for forcing a sale if necessary." He studied me for a moment. "But I have to ask, is that what you really want? Emily, this is your son we're talking about." "My son who left me standing alone at a cruise terminal," I reminded him. "My son who watches his wife subtly push me out of their lives. My son who allows them to use my credit card after excluding me from their family vacation." Richard nodded slowly. "I understand. But remember, legal actions have permanent consequences. Have you tried talking to Michael directly, without Olivia present?" I thought of all the unanswered phone calls over the years, the conversations that never seemed to happen. "He's chosen his side, Richard, and it's not mine." "Very well." Richard pulled out a legal pad. "Let me walk you through your options." For the next hour, Richard outlined what a property sale would entail: the legal notices, the potential for conflict, the division of proceeds. He explained that since there was no mortgage, and given my substantial financial contributions, I would be entitled to at least half the value of the house, possibly more. "You need to think carefully about this," he cautioned as our meeting concluded. "Legal remedies can solve property disputes, but they rarely heal family wounds." I nodded, gathering my documents. "I understand, but sometimes a wound needs to be cleaned before it can heal, and right now, this relationship is festering." As I stood to leave, Richard asked one final question. "What changed?" "Emily, you've been managing this situation for years. Why now?" I thought of Michael's text, of Olivia waving from the deck, of the coral dress still hanging in my closet. "Because now I know where I stand," I replied. "And it's not where I belong, yeah." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Michael and Olivia on that cruise ship, sipping cocktails, posting photos on Instagram, completely unaware of the storm brewing back home. Did they even think about me? Did they feel any guilt about excluding me? About using my credit card, I got up and made chamomile tea, my go-to remedy for sleepless nights since Robert died. As the kettle whistled, I found myself drawn to my laptop. I rarely checked social media; it seemed designed for younger generations, but Michael had insisted I create an Instagram account to see photos of Lily. I logged in and found Olivia's profile. There they were, sunset photos on the deck, drinks with tiny umbrellas, Michael smiling with his arm around Olivia, and one that made my stomach twist: a photo of Olivia in a white robe, face mask applied, with the caption, "Self-care is essential. #Royal Serenity Spa #blessed." That was my $628. That was the family time I wasn't part of. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, my tea growing cold. A strange calm settled over me. This wasn't about hurt feelings anymore. This was about respect, about boundaries, about standing up for myself after years of being taken for granted. Tomorrow, I decided, I would call Jennifer Wong, a real estate agent Barbara had mentioned. It was time to find out exactly what my options were. "The market in Beacon Hill is very hot right now," Jennifer Wong said, reviewing the property details I'd provided. "A colonial of this size, in this condition, could easily fetch $1.8 million, possibly more." We were sitting in a quiet corner of a cafe near my apartment. Jennifer was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, but her knowledge of Boston real estate was impressive. More importantly, she understood the need for discretion. "I specialize in sensitive sales," she'd explained when we first spoke on the phone. "Divorces, estates, family disputes. I understand that sometimes properties need to change hands quietly. Now she looked at me with professional detachment. May I ask why you're considering selling? It seems like a valuable asset, especially in today's market. I gave her the abbreviated version: joint ownership, family conflict, breach of trust. She nodded, asking practical questions about the deed, the property condition, any potential legal complications. Based on what you've told me, you have every right to sell, she confirmed. But given the delicate nature of the situation, I would recommend finding a buyer who can close quickly, preferably with cash. That minimizes the window for complications. How difficult would that be? I asked. Jennifer smiled slightly. In this market, for a property like that, not difficult at all. Many investors are looking for exactly this kind of opportunity. She pulled out a tablet and showed me a calendar. If you're serious about this, I could have potential buyers viewing the property within a week. We would need access, of course. My name is on the deed, I reminded her. I have keys. A plan was taking shape. Michael and Olivia would be on that cruise for another 10 days. If Jennifer could find a buyer quickly. One more thing, I said. How soon after accepting an offer could we close with a cash buyer? As little as 7 to 10 days. I did the mental calculation. If everything aligned perfectly, we could close the sale on August 21st, the very day Michael and Olivia's cruise ship returned to port. Let's do it, I said, a strange calm settling over me. But no sign in the yard, no listing online. I want this to be completely private. Jennifer nodded, understanding perfectly. I have several clients who prefer to buy discreetly. I'll make some calls today. As we shook hands, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For years, I had been accommodating, understanding, patient. I had given without counting the cost. But sometimes, standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Back at my apartment, I found myself drawn to the spare bedroom that had become my home office after retirement. I rarely used it anymore. Most of my time was spent volunteering at the library or taking walks along the harbor. But today, I had a purpose. I opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet and pulled out a folder labeled Michael House. Inside were records of every payment I'd made toward that property: the initial down payment, the tax bills, the roof repair, the landscaping project Olivia had insisted on last spring. 5 years of generosity, documented in checks and bank statements. As I spread them across the desk, calculating the total, my phone buzzed with a text message. Hey, Mom, Kelsey has been a little stressed. Just wanted this trip to be special, intimate. But we love you. Talk when we get back. Michael, of course, now, 4 days into their cruise. He was extending an olive branch. A carefully worded non-apology that shifted the blame to Olivia's stress while assuring me of their love. I read it again. We love you. 3 empty words spoken like anesthesia so the knife in my back wouldn't hurt so much. But this time, it didn't hurt. This time, it made me laugh, a dry, internal laugh. After years of enduring passive-aggressive comments, of smiling while they delivered veiled insults disguised as compliments. After being the only one who asked how everyone's day had been at family dinners. Now they wanted to talk, I didn't respond. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I was no longer interested in justifying myself, or in fighting for crumbs of attention. The house was already being quietly marketed. An offer could come any day. The closing date was penciled in. Everything legal, everything silent. Every day without my response a statement in itself. They were still sailing on an illusion while I was walking firmly on solid ground, dismantling the world they had so comfortably built on my shoulders. They wanted space. Perfect. I gave them miles. They wanted intimacy. They could have it, but without my walls. Because while they toasted with sparkling wine on deck, I was toasting myself. And believe me, that toast tasted better than any they had refused to share with me. The following Monday, Richard called with his calm voice that always reminded me of warm tea on a cold day. The title is clean, he said. No liens, no transfer promises. You can sell whenever you want, without notifying anyone. I gave him the green light. By noon, Jennifer had called. excitement barely contained in her professional tone. A couple has made an offer. Full asking price. Cash. Closing scheduled for August 21st, 9 a.m., the same day your son returns from the cruise. I felt a strange mixture of vindication and sadness. This was no longer about hurt feelings. This was about consequences. About teaching a lesson that should have been learned years ago. Respect is earned, and trust, once broken, must be rebuilt, not taken for granted. That same afternoon, I called a trusted locksmith. Can you come tomorrow? I want to change all the locks on my house. All of them. And this time, only 2 copies of the keys. There was something liberating in that simple act. Changing the locks wasn't just a physical act. It was symbolic. It was like finally closing the door on emotional abuse, on disguised blackmail, on codependence masquerading as family. I stored the new keys in a ceramic jar that said lemon tea on my kitchen's highest shelf. Nobody looked there. Then I sat on the sofa with a notebook and began to write. Not a diary, a list. Change locks, sign sale agreement, cancel credit card, notify lawyer of closing, pack important belongings, remove items of sentimental value, clean kitchen one last time. And at the end, I wrote, I'll be gone before they arrive. This time, I'm the one who disappears without inviting. That night, I made a double infusion of chamomile, not from sadness, but from habit. I twisted my wedding ring, the one I never removed even when I became a widow, even when my son began to disappear, and I promised myself something. This is not revenge. It's restoration. They played with my patience, but forgot I still held the title to the property. And that, dear friends, is the only paper that truly matters. Word began to leak out. Not from me, of course. I said nothing, just acted. But whispers started. Had I really sold the house? Was I no longer speaking to Michael? Was I being spiteful? Sarah was the first to call me. Emily, really? Did you sell their house? Her voice was thick with disapproval. Yes, it was mine. But why? Because that's not of God. Sarah continued without waiting for my answer. You're better than this. I was silent for a moment, then took a deep breath. And which part exactly isn't of God? Sarah, the part where they left me at the port like I was a servant with a suitcase, or the part where they used my credit card to indulge in spa treatments? She sighed, said something about forgiveness, about family, about acting from a place of hurt. I only replied, this wound already has a scab, and it's called a legal deed. She hung up. I wasn't surprised. Sarah never understood what it's like to raise a child alone. She doesn't understand how it feels to give and give, only to be told you're too much. I didn't need her approval or anyone else's. While she talked about morality, I was wrapping my porcelain dishes in bubble wrap. While Michael and Olivia posted photos of sunsets and piña coladas, I was dusting the last shelf, leaving everything ready for the new owners. The next day, a neighbor greeted me with a mixture of pity and judgment in her voice. So you're moving? How sad. I thought that house was for your grandchildren. I smiled. Yes, for my grandchildren. When they invite me to their birthdays, we'll talk. I left without waiting for a response because that was another lesson. Sometimes respect comes after the door slams. Humiliation isn't always public. Sometimes it happens in your living room with a wine glass in hand and an ignored mother-in-law, but dignity that can be silent and powerful. And while others thought I had gone too far, I knew I was only just beginning. I was cleaning the kitchen, checking the drawers one by one before leaving for good. It wasn't nostalgia. It was protocol. I'm one of those women who leaves no crumbs behind, no dust in the corners. My mother used to say that a house is handed over with dignity or not at all. In the last drawer, behind some empty envelopes and a notebook I didn't recognize, I found an unmarked blue folder. I opened it without thinking, and there it was, printed and highlighted in email from Olivia. Subject RE, deed transfer, continuous occupancy. She was writing to a notary, copying Michael. She detailed a plan, with the utility bills in our name and proof of prolonged occupancy. We could initiate the quitclaim process. It's almost ours. Just need to hang in there. Hang in there. That's how they saw me a rock in the road. Their plan was apparently to take the house through attrition, through presence, through persistence like squatters claiming rights through longevity. I sat in the kitchen chair with that folder in my hands. My chamomile tea was still steaming on the tablecloth, and I felt that odd mixture of old anger and new relief. They had wanted to legally erase me, but they were too late. That same week, I had already closed the sale. The notary had given the go-ahead. The money was in the process of being deposited, and the keys had already been changed. They thought they could remove my name from the deed as easily as deleting a contact from a phone. But they forgot something basic. I'm not just a signature. I'm the founder. That house wasn't inherited or gifted. It was an investment. It was love disguised as a roof. It was a mother's patience that believed herself indispensable. And now it was proof that I hadn't forgotten how to protect myself. I put the blue folder in my bag as evidence. Richard told me it might be useful if they tried anything else later. But I was no longer afraid because I wasn't reacting anymore. I was leading. Let them try. Now I'm the one holding firm not from their living room sofa, but from the solid ground of the law. 2 days before closing, I packed my last bag. I made sure to take everything: the photo albums, the few pieces of jewelry I had left, the cookie recipe I always made with Lily, though I'm not sure she even remembers now. I also took my old blanket, the one that smells like Saturday mornings and Sundays. The only thing I left was the gray sofa where they used to sprawl to watch TV as if everything belonged to them. Let the new owners use it, I thought. It's comfortable, and I don't carry grudges or useless furniture. The night before, I had taken a tour of the house with the calmness of someone closing a chapter. I touched each wall as if wanting to thank every corner for having sheltered me and them for so many years. Then I wrote the note. Not a letter, not a complaint, just a printed truth with firmness. This property has been sold. Do not attempt to enter. All communication will be handled by attorney Richard Martinez. I signed it, taped it to the door with thick tape, made sure it wouldn't blow away, and put a second copy inside on the entry table. The new owners had confirmed they would arrive on August 21st at 8 a.m., just as the cruise ship would dock back in port. Perfect synchronicity. My final gesture was to check that the security cameras were working, not to spy on them, but to protect myself from any tantrum or attempt at drama. At 7:30 a.m. on the morning of August 21st, I walked out the door. I turned the new lock one last time. I placed the keys in a sealed envelope with the real estate agent's address and left without looking back. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I just felt a strange peace. Like when you finally remove a splinter you've been pretending didn't hurt for years. They took the cruise. I took my freedom and left a note on the door as the signature of my rebirth. Damn. Once the keys were delivered and the sale closed, I went directly to my cousin Teresa's house on Cape Cod. 1 week for myself. No schedules. No calls. Richard knew exactly what to do. I left him clear instructions. Any attempt at contact, insult, demand, or plea from Michael or Olivia should be redirected straight to his office. I didn't want to know anything. I didn't need to know if they cried, shouted, or knelt. I had done my part. In the envelope I taped to the door, besides the sale notice, I also included Richard's card, his name, his email, his office number, all well presented, as if it were an invitation to a wedding where they, this time, were not invited. Richard called me the next day, somewhere between amused and amazed. They started early. At 8:17 a.m. the phone rang. First him, then her, then together, then messages, then emails. "And what did you do?" I asked, stirring my coffee while watching the ocean. "What you asked?" I informed them that any legal claim should be made through the appropriate channels, that the property had been properly transferred, and that you wished to have no contact. And did they understand? They were left speechless, but not without rage. I smiled. Not out of malice, but relief, because for years I had been the one who answered their calls at any hour. Me, the one who ran to the bank, who solved everything, who cried silently when, after giving, I received not even a thank you. But now all of that had a filter, Richard. A wall of professionalism between my heart and their manipulation. The new owner sent me a kind message. Everything in order. Thank you for leaving it all clean. Your energy can be felt in the house. Good. I didn't cry, but my eyes moistened. Perhaps someone at last valued not only the house, but what one builds with love. That day I sat by the ocean with my notebook. I wrote one phrase, this time. I'm the one who hangs up the phone.
Yeah.
Olivia couldn't handle the silence. During the rest of the cruise, her Instagram became a parade of veiled hostility disguised as spirituality. A photo on deck in a white robe and a face of complete peace. Healing with my core family. 2 hearts. Boundaries are love. Another image with Michael and Lily in his arms. Grateful for those who are truly there for us. Everything else falls away. And then the jewel a selfie with the sea in the background. Nothing like getting away from toxicity to find yourself again. Screenshot. 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 Each one with date, time, and its passive-aggressive tone, as polished as an expensive wine glass. What they didn't know was that while they thought they were telling their version, I already had the final act ready. Because one thing I learned social media is the ego's favorite stage. And the ego, when it inflates too much, always bursts. They were sailing toward a house that was no longer theirs. They smiled as if the world was theirs, not suspecting that when they disembarked, the world was going to change the lock on them. There was no scandal, no, how could you, Mom? Just a silent legal wait. I knitted with patience, like I did when Michael was small and I sewed his Halloween costumes until midnight, except this time, they were the ones wearing the costume, and soon it would fall off. I, on the other hand, was knitting a new destiny. My notebook had a new list, rental contract signed on the Coast new bank account, updated will number blocked, Olivia number blocked, Michael, no more empty apologies, because what they thought was absence was strategy, what they called boundaries was my newly acquired freedom, and while they sailed, I had already reached firm ground. The night before their return, my phone vibrated, a message from Michael. Mom, I hope we can reconnect. You're part of our family. Always will be. I read it once, then again, and left it on read. The irony made me smile. How opportune love was. Wasn't it a week earlier? I was too loud, too intense, too annoying to be included in a trip I coincidentally helped pay for. And now, just before setting foot on solid ground, I was family again. Family doesn't leave you at the port. Family doesn't smile from the deck while you swallow your shame at the terminal. Family doesn't bathe in spa essences with your card while you eat toast looking at the sea from your kitchen window. The message was an emotional trap, but I no longer fell for bait. I saved it as evidence, as a reminder, as confirmation that I did the right thing, because if one thing became clear to me, it's that when the money runs out, so does the we love you. But this time, the money left with me, and what remained was their reflection. Michael, my son, still didn't understand that love isn't eternal when only one side feeds it. I had loved, I had given, I had believed, and they simply accommodated until one day I stood up and said, enough. What they call betrayal, I call awakening, and that message so full of sugar and guilt was the last spoonful I didn't swallow. I turned off the phone. Tomorrow they would receive the welcome they deserved, not with shouts, but with a paper on the door and a lock that no longer opened for them. It was the early morning of August 21st. They were returning from the cruise that night. I knew it. They always fly at night to make the most of the day. And like everything in their lives, calculated for their convenience. I was no longer in the city. I was in my new coastal apartment with the window open and the sound of waves as my only company. But I could imagine it all. The Uber parking in front of the curb, the suitcases rolling on the pavement, the tired giggles after a week of sea and aloe vera face masks, and then the silence. The first sign that something wasn't right, the porch light off, then the useless click of keys turning without effect. Once, again, dry blow, nothing, on the door, stuck with industrial tape. The note, property sold. All communication must be conducted through legal channels with attorney Richard Martinez. Do not attempt to enter. Security registry active. I imagined Olivia's face, that expression of disbelief she only puts on when something escapes her control. I imagined Michael checking his phone, looking for some message from me that never came. I imagined the moment they realized there was no mistake, no pending explanation, only consequence. At 8 o'clock sharp, the new owners arrived. A young, kind couple, with a ready moving van and signed papers. I had already explained everything to them, the story. The keys, the cameras, the necessary silence. They understood. They even wished me luck. Michael and Olivia, on the other hand, understood nothing because they always believed that a mother's love was like tap water, automatic, constant, without a bill. That early morning, the house I built with love looked at them from the other side of the door and didn't recognize them. Within hours of the definitive door closing, Olivia did what she knew best, theater. She uploaded a story to Instagram with red eyes and very strategically smudged makeup, and a phrase in black on white. Imagine your mother-in-law gifting you a house and then taking it away. Minutes later, a post, some people never get over their children growing up and making their own family. What pain when resentment speaks louder than love. But the best came in the comments. Her usual followers, those who always put hearts and divine under her posts, started asking questions. One in particular wrote, "Was the house in your name?" Another more direct, "Did she sign the deed in your favor?" And then an old friend of Michael's appeared, one of those he believed didn't read anything. "My mom knows Mrs. Emily. She paid for everything. Olivia, it's not your house if there's no paper." The domino effect was immediate. The narrative of the hurt daughter-in-law collapsed like a sand castle. Michael tried to intervene, posting a vague story. There are things that aren't resolved on social media. But the damage was done, and a user responded to him. "The damage was leaving your mom on land while you used her card." I said nothing, didn't answer, didn't post anything. Because when a truth is well written with lawyers, signatures, and notaries, it needs no defense on Facebook. Social media became their mirror. And they didn't like what they saw. Their version couldn't stand. Their shame, however, did go viral. And while the virtual world burned, I prepared another chamomile tea, this time with a smile, because finally, the story they had always told in their favor wrote itself in my defense. I moved to a smaller place, by the sea, quiet, fresh. There are no spare rooms, no wedding ornaments, no picture frames with forced smiles, just what I need. My blue armchair, my wool blanket, and a kettle that whistles softly at 6 in the afternoon. Michael doesn't call anymore. Olivia, I imagine, still wallows in her own version of events, trying to find angles that make her a victim. But I don't care anymore. The curious thing is, I don't feel anger. There's no hatred, no pain. There's an emptiness. Yes, but it's a clean emptiness, like when you finish cleaning out the closet, throw away what no longer serves, and can finally breathe. For years, I believed that being a mother meant disappearing so they could shine, that being generous was love, that enduring slights in silence was nobility. But the truth is, I became invisible, and I allowed it until one day they left me at the port, and I understood there was no mistake. It was a declaration. Just family. They said, well, now they live with that. Because I was family. I was the one who paid the down payment, the furniture, the baby stroller, the Christmas tablecloth, and even the therapies Olivia couldn't afford. I was the family who arrived with rice and chicken when they had nothing for dinner. I was the one who waited for an invitation that never came. And now I'm the woman who left without noise, with her head held high, and with the only title that matters, my name, at peace. It's amazing how one night of good sleep can change your perspective. For the first time in months, maybe years, I woke up without that familiar tightness in my chest, the one that came from constantly worrying about Michael and Olivia's approval. The morning sunlight streamed through my bedroom window, casting long shadows across my small apartment. I stretched, feeling lighter somehow. The decision had been made. The wheels were in motion. There was no going back. And strangely, that certainty brought me peace. I made my coffee stronger than usual and carried it to my tiny balcony overlooking the Boston Harbor. The city was already awake, bustling with morning commuters and joggers along the waterfront, life continuing as normal, even as mine had shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed a text from Barbara. "How are you holding up? Want to grab lunch today?" I smiled. Barbara had been my rock through all of this, never questioning my decision, simply offering her unwavering support. Unlike Sarah, who called again last night to lecture me about forgiveness and family obligations. "Lunch sounds perfect," I texted back. Noon at Murphy's. With that settled, I turned my attention to the task at hand. Today was about cutting ties, financial ties. Specifically, I logged into my banking app and methodically reviewed every account where Michael or Olivia might still have access. The American Express card had already been canceled, but there was also the joint checking account I'd set up to help with Lily's preschool tuition, and the savings account where I'd been depositing money for her college fund. I wasn't going to touch Lily's money, she was innocent in all this, but I needed to ensure Michael and Olivia couldn't access my personal funds anymore. I transferred Lily's college fund to a new trust account with clear stipulations the money could only be used for educational expenses, and I would be the sole trustee until Lily turned 18. It was the right balance, protecting my granddaughter's future while removing Michael and Olivia's access to the funds. With that done, I called my bank and scheduled an appointment to close the joint checking account. "Will you be opening a new account?" the representative asked. "Yes," I replied, "but only in my name this time." It felt strange and empowering all at once, like reclaiming pieces of myself I'd given away without realizing it. Each account changed. Each card canceled was another step toward independence. By the time I met Barbara for lunch, I had systematically untangled my financial life from Michael and Olivia's. "You look different," Barbara said as soon as I sat down across from her at our favorite corner table. "More, I don't know, present," I smiled. "I feel different, like I've finally woken up after a very long sleep." Barbara raised her water glass. "To being wide awake." We clinked glasses, and I felt a surge of gratitude for true friendship, the kind that stands beside you without judgment when the rest of the world is quick to criticize. "Sarah called me," Barbara said after we'd ordered. "She's worried about you." I sighed. "Sarah thinks I'm having a breakdown. She doesn't understand that I'm finally standing up for myself." "She's never had to stand up for herself," Barbara pointed out. "Tom has always handled everything. She's never had to rebuild a life after losing a husband or raise a child alone." I nodded, appreciating Barbara's insight. "She keeps telling me I need to forgive them, that family is everything." "And what do you say to that?" I considered the question, taking a sip of my iced tea. "I say that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing yourself to be disrespected, and that family goes both ways. It's not just me giving and them taking." Barbara reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Exactly. And don't let anyone, not even your sister, make you feel guilty for finally drawing a line." We spent the rest of lunch talking about everything except Michael and Olivia Barbara's upcoming trip to Vermont, the book club selection we were both struggling to finish, the new exhibit at the Museum of Fine Arts we planned to visit. It felt good to talk about normal things, to be reminded that life continued beyond this family drama. As we were leaving the restaurant, Barbara hugged me tightly. "I'm proud of you, Emily. What you're doing isn't easy, but it's necessary." Those words carried me through the rest of the day, through Sarah's second voicemail, expressing her deep concern about my rash decisions, through the notification that Michael had tried to use the now-canceled credit card for another purchase on the cruise. Necessary. Yes, that's exactly what this was. The next morning, I woke to an email from Jennifer Wong with an update on the house sale. The prospective buyers, James and Rebecca Taylor, wanted to schedule a final walkthrough before closing. They've already secured the cash for purchase and are very eager to proceed. Jennifer wrote, "Would tomorrow at 10 a.m. work for the walkthrough?" I confirmed the time and spent the day preparing. I wanted the house to be immaculate when they saw it, not for Michael and Olivia's sake, but for my own. This house represented years of my financial support and emotional investment. I wanted to hand it over with dignity. I arrived early the next day, letting myself in with the new keys. The house felt different somehow, like a hotel room rather than a home. I walked through each room, making sure everything was in order, opening blinds to let in the summer light. In the master bedroom, I paused at Olivia's vanity. It was cluttered with expensive skincare products and makeup evidence of her endless pursuit of perfection. Next to a crystal jar of face cream that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget was a small stack of papers. I shouldn't have looked. I knew I shouldn't have. But something pulled me toward those papers. An instinct I couldn't explain. The top document was a printout of an email thread between Olivia and a real estate attorney. I recognized the name Charlotte Weber, one of the most expensive property lawyers in Boston. As discussed, establishing continuous occupancy is the first step toward adverse possession. The email read, with Mrs. Smith's name still on the deed but her physical absence from the property, you may have grounds for a quiet title action in the future, especially if she continues to pay expenses without formally documenting her ownership stake. Adverse possession. Quiet title action. The legal terms swam before my eyes, but their meaning was clear. Olivia had been planning to take the house from me legally, using my own generosity against me. There was more a response from Olivia. We've been careful to keep all utility bills in our names only. She hasn't lived here in 5 years, though she visits occasionally. How much longer do we need to establish continuous occupancy? Michael's mother is becoming increasingly difficult to manage, especially with her expectations around our daughter. Difficult to manage, like I was a problem to be solved, not a person to be respected. I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to crumple the papers in my fist. Instead, I carefully photographed each page with my phone. Evidence. Then I replaced them exactly as I'd found them. By the time Jennifer arrived with the Taylors, I had composed myself. Though my hands still trembled slightly as I greeted them, the walkthrough went smoothly. Rebecca Taylor, a warm woman in her early 40s, seemed to genuinely love the house, especially the kitchen where I'd spent so many Sundays baking for a family that didn't want me. The cabinet space is amazing, she gushed, and that farmhouse sink, I've always wanted one of those. Her husband James, a tall man with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair, asked practical questions about the heating system and the roof's age. The roof is only a year old, I told him. I replaced it last summer. I didn't add that I'd paid for it, not Michael and Olivia. That wasn't the Taylors' concern. As they explored the upstairs, Jennifer pulled me aside. They love it, she whispered. I think we'll have no problem closing on schedule. I nodded, relief washing over me. Good. That's good. Jennifer studied my face. Are you all right? Emily, you seem a little shaken. For a moment, I considered telling her about what I'd found the evidence of Olivia's scheming. But what would be this point? The house was being sold. Their plan had failed before it even fully formed. I'm fine, I assured her. Just emotional about closing this chapter. After the Taylors left, I lingered in the empty house. I'd expected to feel sad, maybe even regretful. Instead, I felt strangely liberated. This house, which had once represented my love and support for my son, had become a symbol of exploitation. Selling it wasn't just a financial decision, it was reclaiming my self-respect. That evening, as I was preparing a simple dinner in my apartment, my phone rang. The screen displayed a number I didn't recognize. Hello, Mrs. Smith, this is Charlotte Weber, the real estate attorney from Olivia's emails. My heart skipped a beat. How can I help you, Ms. Weber? I understand you're planning to sell the property at 47 Marlborough Street. Her voice was crisp, professional. I'm calling on behalf of my clients, Michael and Olivia Smith. I gripped the counter, steadying myself. I see. My clients have expressed concern about this sale proceeding without their consultation or consent. Given that they currently reside in the property, I took a deep breath. Ms. Weber, I'm sure you're aware that I am the legal co-owner of the property. The mortgage has been paid in full, and there are no liens or encumbrances on the title. Yes, but... And I'm also sure you're aware that as a legal co-owner, I have the right to sell my interest in the property, particularly given that I provided the down payment and have continued to contribute financially to its upkeep. A brief silence on the other end. Mrs. Smith, my clients simply feel that this action is precipitous. They would like to discuss alternatives that could benefit all parties. I almost laughed. Now they wanted to talk. Now they wanted to find a mutually beneficial solution. I appreciate your call, Ms. Weber, but any further communication should go through my attorney, Richard Martinez. I believe you have his contact information, as he responded to your letter last week. Another pause. Yes, we've been in touch with Mr. Martinez. Then you know that the sale is proceeding as planned. The closing is scheduled for August 21st. Mrs. Smith, I urge you to reconsider. Legal action can be costly and time-consuming for everyone involved. Ah, there it was, the veiled threat. I'd expected nothing less. Is that a threat of litigation, Ms. Weber? Not at all. I'm simply pointing out that these matters are best resolved through open dialogue rather than unilateral action. I agree completely, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. Unfortunately, the time for dialogue was before my son and his wife excluded me from a family vacation while using my credit card without permission. The time for dialogue was before they began consulting with you about how to claim adverse possession of a property that I helped them acquire. The time for dialogue has passed. Silence stretched between us. When Charlotte Weber spoke again, her tone had changed. I understand your position, Mrs. Smith. I'll convey your message to my clients. Thank you. And Ms. Weber, you might want to advise your clients that attempting to claim adverse possession against a co-owner who has been actively contributing to the property's expenses is unlikely to succeed in court. Just a thought. I ended the call before she could respond, my heart pounding in my chest. I'd never spoken so boldly to an attorney before to anyone, really. It felt terrifying and exhilarating all at once. My phone immediately rang again, Richard this time. I just got off the phone with Charlotte Weber, he said without preamble. What did you say to her? I recounted our conversation, half expecting Richard to chastise me for being too confrontational. Instead, he chuckled. Well done, Emily. Well done indeed. Really? You stood your ground firmly but professionally, and you're absolutely right about the adverse possession claim. It's absurd in this context. I think you've put them on notice that you're not going to be intimidated. Relief flooded through me. So what happens now? Now we proceed with the closing as planned. Weber might file an emergency motion to try to stop the sale, but it would be on shaky legal ground. The title is clear. You're the legal owner, and you have every right to sell. And if they do file something, then we'll fight it, but I doubt they will. Based on what Weber said to me, I think they're realizing their position isn't as strong as they thought. After we hung up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at my half-prepared dinner, no longer hungry. The confrontation with Weber had drained me, but it had also clarified something. I was no longer afraid of Michael and Olivia's reaction. I was no longer worried about their approval or their anger. For the first time in years, I was acting solely in my own best interest, and it felt right. The following morning brought a flurry of activity. Jennifer called to confirm that the Taylors had completed their financial verification. The cash for the purchase was officially in escrow. Richard called to inform me that, as he predicted, no emergency motion had been filed. Charlotte Weber seemed to have advised her clients that legal action would be futile. And Sarah called. Again, this time with a different approach. I've been thinking about what you said, she began, her voice unusually tentative, about family going both ways. And, I prompted, stirring honey into my morning tea. And I think maybe I've been too quick to judge. Tom and we've had a different experience. Our kids have always been so respectful, so involved in our lives. I waited, sensing there was more. Barbara showed me the text Michael sent you about the cruise, and I have to admit, if one of my kids had done that to me, well, I wouldn't have been as calm as you've been. It was as close to an apology as Sarah was likely to get. Thank you for saying that. I still think you should try to talk to him. Work things out, she added. unable to completely let go of her peacemaker role. But I understand better now why you're hurt. It's not just hurt, Sarah. It's years of being taken for granted, of being used for my money and excluded from their lives unless they needed something. It's finding out they were planning to legally take the house from me using adverse possession laws. They were what Sarah's shock was evident even through the phone. I explained what I'd found the emails to Charlotte Weber. The plan to establish continuous occupancy. The description of me as difficult to manage. Oh my God. Emily, that's awful. I had no idea it was that bad. Neither did I, until recently. I thought I was just being oversensitive, reading too much into things. But it turns out my instincts were right. We talked for nearly an hour, the longest conversation we'd had in years. By the end, Sarah wasn't exactly endorsing my decision to sell the house, but she understood it. Progress, of a sort. After we hung up, I checked my email and found a message from Jennifer with the final closing documents attached for my review. It was really happening. In just a few days, the house would no longer be mine or Michael and Olivia's. I printed the documents and began reviewing them carefully at my kitchen table, making notes of any questions for Richard. The legal language was dense, but the essence was clear. In exchange for $185 million, I was transferring all rights and interest in the property to James and Rebecca Taylor. The doorbell rang, interrupting my review. I wasn't expecting anyone. And for a moment, I felt a flicker of anxiety. What if it was Michael or Olivia, somehow back early from their cruise? But when I peered through the peephole, I saw a delivery person holding a large arrangement of flowers. "Delivery for Emily Smith," she announced when I opened the door. I thanked her and carried the beautiful bouquet of lilies and roses to my kitchen counter. The card read, "To new beginnings and standing tall. With admiration, Barbara." Tears pricked my eyes as I arranged the flowers in a vase. Barbara had always known exactly when I needed encouragement. Tomorrow, I would send her a thank you text. Today, I would simply enjoy the beauty of her gift and the warmth of knowing someone understood and supported me. With renewed energy, I returned to the closing documents. One section caught my attention, a statement confirming that the property was being sold free of all occupants, with vacant possession to be delivered at closing. Michael and Olivia would have nowhere to return to when their cruise ended. The thought made me pause, a momentary doubt creeping in. Was I being too harsh? Should I have given them more warning? Then I remembered Olivia's spa charge on my credit card. Michael's text about the cruise being just family. The emails plotting to take legal ownership of the house from me. No, I decided they had made their choices. Now they would live with the consequences. I signed the documents, my signature strong and clear on each page. No hesitation, no regret. Just certainty that I was finally valuing myself as much as I had always valued them. The next day, Jennifer called with unexpected news. "The Taylors want to meet with you before the closing," she said. "Not about the house, they're completely committed to the purchase. They just want to talk to you personally." I was puzzled, but agreed to meet them for coffee that afternoon at a small cafe near my apartment. When I arrived, Rebecca Taylor was already there, wearing a simple sundress and a warm smile. James joined us a few minutes later, apologizing for his lateness. "Thank you for meeting us," Rebecca began once we'd ordered. "We know this is a bit unusual, but after the walkthrough, we felt there was more to this story than just a house sale." I tensed slightly. "What do you mean?" James leaned forward, his expression sincere. "Mrs. Smith Emily, we've bought and sold several properties over the years, but we've never seen someone sell a home they obviously cared about with such dignity and sadness at the same time. We're not trying to pry," Rebecca added quickly, "but we want you to know that we understand this isn't just a transaction for you. This house means something." I looked at their kind, open faces and felt something inside me release. For weeks, I'd been holding myself together, presenting a strong front to Richard, to Jennifer, to Barbara and Sarah, even to myself. "My son and his wife don't know I'm selling," I said quietly. "They're on a cruise they excluded me from at the last minute. even though I helped pay for it. They return on the 21st, the day of closing. Rebecca's eyes widened. James's eyebrows rose slightly, but neither interrupted. I've been supporting them financially for years, the down payment on the house, property taxes, a new roof last year, all while being gradually pushed out of their lives, treated as an inconvenience rather than family. The words tumbled out. 5 years of hurt and confusion condensed into a few sentences. I told them about the credit card charge, about finding Olivia's emails regarding adverse possession, about the gradual erosion of my place in their lives. So yes, I concluded, this house does mean something to me. It represents both my love for my son and the painful realization that that love wasn't being reciprocated. There was a moment of silence when I finished. Then Rebecca reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Thank you for trusting us with this," she said. "We promise we'll take good care of the house. And we want you to know," James added, "that you're welcome to visit any time. Not to see them, of course, but if there are memories there, things you want to revisit." I was touched by their generosity, their understanding. "Thank you. But I think this is a clean break for me. New chapter, new beginning." We chatted for a while longer about lighter topics, their plans for the house, a home office for James in the spare bedroom, a garden redesign that Rebecca was excited about, their careers. He was a pediatric surgeon. She ran a nonprofit supporting arts education in public schools. They were good people. I realized the house would be in good hands. As we parted, Rebecca hugged me impulsively. "Stay strong," she whispered. "You're doing the right thing." Her words stayed with me as I walked home, a mantra against the doubt that still occasionally crept in. You're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. The weekend passed in a blur of preparations. I visited the house one last time on Saturday to collect a few remaining personal items, a small watercolor painting of Cape Cod that had been a wedding gift from Robert's parents, a set of vintage cocktail glasses that had belonged to my grandmother. As I was carefully wrapping the glasses in newspaper, my phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. My heart skipped a beat. They weren't supposed to have cell service on the cruise. Had they returned early? Had they somehow found out about the sale? I answered, my voice carefully neutral. "Hello? Mom?" Michael's voice was distorted by a poor connection, but the false cheer came through clearly. "We found a spot with Wi-Fi. How are you?" "I'm fine, Michael, enjoying the quiet." "Listen, Mom, about the cruise. I feel terrible about how that happened. Olivia's been under so much stress with work, and she just wanted some time for us to reconnect as a couple. You know," I said nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. "Mom, are you there?" "I'm here. Just waiting to hear if there's an actual apology somewhere in that explanation." He sighed, that familiar sound of exasperation I'd heard so many times. "I'm trying to explain. Mom, it wasn't personal. Excluding me from a family vacation at the last minute, after I helped pay for it, feels very personal. Michael, you didn't pay for the whole thing," he protested. "Just the deposit. And the spa treatment Olivia charged to my credit card after leaving me at the port. Did I pay for that?" Silence. Then, what spa treatment? Either he genuinely didn't know, or he was a better actor than I gave him credit for. "Check your credit card statements when you get back," I said. "I'm sure it's all there." "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about, but I called to make peace. We'll be back on the 21st. Why don't you come over for dinner that night? We'll talk everything through. The three of us." The three of us, as if Olivia would be part of any genuine reconciliation. "I can't make it on the 21st, I said truthfully. "I have a previous engagement. The next night then, or that weekend. Whenever works for you. I really want us to clear the air." I almost laughed. Clear the air when they'd returned to find the house sold. The locks changed. Their belongings essentially stranded. "We'll talk when you get back," I said, non-committal. "Enjoy the rest of your cruise. Michael." I ended the call before he could respond, my hands shaking slightly. His voice so familiar, so tied to memories of bedtime stories and high school graduations and proud parent moments had stirred emotions I thought I'd put aside. But there was no turning back now. The closing was 3 days away. The decision had been made. I finished packing the cocktail glasses and took one last look around the house that had represented so much hope when Michael and Olivia first bought it, the house that had slowly become a symbol of my exclusion from their lives. "Goodbye," I whispered to the empty rooms, not with sadness, but with finality. It was time to move on. Sunday morning dawned bright and clear. A perfect New England summer day. I woke early, a habit from my teaching days that I'd never broken, and made my way to the small balcony with my coffee. The city was quiet, most people still sleeping off their Saturday night adventures. I savored the peace, watching a container ship make its slow way across the harbor, wondering where it was headed and what it carried. 2 more days until the closing. 2 more days until Michael and Olivia returned to find their lives upended. I tried to imagine their reaction: shock, certainly. Anger, probably. Perhaps even remorse, though I doubted it. Olivia wasn't the type to accept responsibility for her actions, and Michael had always been too easily influenced by her. My phone chimed with a notification. Curious, I picked it up to find an Instagram alert Olivia had posted a new photo. I rarely checked social media, but I'd set up alerts for Olivia's posts after discovering the spa charge, wanting to keep tabs on their activities. The photo showed Olivia and Michael on what appeared to be the ship's deck, champagne flutes in hand, sunset casting a golden glow over their smiling faces. The caption read, "Last night on the high seas, making memories with my soulmate before returning to reality tomorrow." Hashtag blessed hot couple goals had Sunset Cruise. Reality. If only she knew what reality had in store. I closed the app, feeling neither satisfaction nor guilt, just a strange detachment. These people, my son and his wife, had become almost strangers to me. Their values, their treatment of others, their sense of entitlement. All of it felt foreign to the values I'd tried to instill in Michael as he grew up. Where had I gone wrong? Had I spoiled him, failed to teach him gratitude, or was this all Olivia's influence? No, I decided, setting my phone aside. I wouldn't fall into that trap of blaming everything on Olivia. Michael was a grown man who made his own choices. He chose to exclude me from the cruise. He chose to allow Olivia to use my credit card without permission. He chose to participate in their plan to take legal ownership of the house away from me. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Richard's name flashed on the screen. "Good morning, Emily," he said when I answered. "I wanted to update you on a few things before tomorrow's pre-closing meeting." "Is there a problem?" I asked, immediately alert. No, everything's proceeding as planned. I just wanted to confirm that we've received the full title report, and everything is clear. No liens, no encumbrances, no surprises. Relief washed over me. That's good news. I've also had another conversation with Charlotte Weber. She wanted to know if you might consider allowing Michael and Olivia a few days after closing to remove their belongings from the house. I frowned. How would she even know about the sale? They're still on the cruise, aren't they? Apparently, they have someone watching the house, a neighbor, perhaps, or a friend. This person noticed the locksmith and the walkthrough with the tailors and reported back to Weber. My mind raced. Who could be watching the house? The neighbors on either side were snowbirds who spent summers in Maine. Maybe someone across the street, or Olivia's friend Caroline, who lived a few blocks away. "What did you tell her?" I asked. I said that the terms of the sale specify vacant possession at closing, and that any arrangements regarding their belongings would need to be made with the new owners after the fact. I also reminded her that as they had no legal right to occupy the property, they should consider themselves fortunate that the new owners might be willing to work with them at all. I smiled, picturing Weber's face at Richard's firm response. "Thank you, Richard. I don't know what I would have done without your guidance through all of this." "Just doing my job," he said, though I could hear the smile in his voice. "I'll see you tomorrow at 2:00 for the pre-closing review." After we hung up, I sat quietly, processing this new information. Someone was watching the house. Michael and Olivia, or at least their lawyer, knew something was happening, though probably not the full extent of it. Did it change anything? No. I decided the plan remained the same. The closing would proceed as scheduled on Tuesday morning, the same day Michael and Olivia's cruise ship docked in Miami. By the time they made it back to Boston, the house would belong to the Taylors, and I would be starting my new life. I spent the rest of the day preparing for that new life, researching short-term rentals on Cape Cod. I'd always loved the Cape and thought I might spend a few weeks there while deciding where to settle permanently, organizing the few personal belongings I'd removed from the house, updating my address with the post office and various services. It felt good to be taking these concrete steps toward my future, a future where I would no longer be defined by my relationship with Michael and Olivia, a future where I would value myself first. That evening, Barbara came over with takeout Chinese food and a bottle of white wine. We sat on my small balcony, watching the lights of the city come on as dusk fell. "So tomorrow's the pre-closing, and Tuesday's the big day," she said, refilling our wine glasses. "How are you feeling?" I considered the question. Surprisingly calm. I thought I'd be a nervous wreck by now, second-guessing myself, feeling guilty. But I'm not. I'm just ready. Barbara nodded. "I think that's your answer right there. When something is the right decision, it brings peace, not doubt." There was one moment of doubt, I admitted. Michael called from the cruise yesterday. He wants to clear the air when they get back. Invited me to dinner on Tuesday night. Barbara nearly choked on her wine. Tuesday, the day they find out you've sold their house, that would be some dinner conversation. Despite myself, I laughed. The absurdity of it all, Michael planning a reconciliatory dinner in a house that would no longer be his, struck me as darkly funny. "Can you imagine their faces?" Barbara continued, warming to the theme. "Showing up with their luggage, putting the key in the lock, and nothing. Then seeing that note on the door." "Stop," I said, he said, though I was still smiling. "It's not supposed to be about revenge." Barbara's expression grew serious. "It's not about revenge, Emily. It's about consequences. They treated you like an ATM with a pulse for years. They excluded you from family events while happily taking your money. They plotted to legally take the house from you. Now they're facing the consequences of those actions." Put that way, it was hard to argue. Still, a tiny voice in the back of my mind wondered if there had been another way, a conversation, a confrontation, a chance for them to make amends before I took such a drastic step. But that voice was quieter now, nearly drowned out by the certainty that I was doing the right thing. Not just for me, but perhaps for Michael too. Maybe this wake-up call was what he needed to reassess his values, his choices, his relationship with Olivia. "Do you think he'll ever forgive me?" I asked softly. Barbara didn't pretend to misunderstand. "I think the real question is whether you'll ever forgive him. And Olivia." I stared out at the harbor, considering her words. "I don't know. I want to think I could. Eventually, if they showed genuine remorse. But right now, it's hard to imagine." "One day at a time," Barbara advised. "First, get through the closing. Then give yourself permission to feel whatever you feel: anger, relief, sadness, joy. It's all valid." We sat in companionable silence for a while, watching boats on the water, sipping our wine. "Thank you for the flowers," I said finally. "They were exactly what I needed," Barbara smiled. "I thought you could use a reminder that new growth comes after pruning, even when the pruning hurts." New growth. Yes, that's what this was all about, creating space for something better to bloom. Monday morning arrived with a sense of inevitability. The pre-closing meeting was scheduled for 2:00 p.m., and I spent the morning meticulously reviewing every document Richard had sent over, making notes of any final questions. At 1:30, I arrived at Richard's office, dressed in what Robert used to call my business armor, a navy blue suit I'd had for years but rarely wore anymore since retiring from teaching. Today felt like an occasion that warranted armor. Richard greeted me warmly, ushering me into his conference room where Jennifer Wong and a representative from the title company were already waiting. "Emily, you remember Jennifer, of course, and this is Thomas Chen from Atlantic Title." I shook hands with both of them, noting the stack of documents on the conference table. "Everything's in order," Thomas assured me. We've conducted a thorough title search, and there are no issues that would prevent the closing from proceeding tomorrow. For the next hour, we went through each document line by line. Richard explained every clause, every condition, every legal term until I was satisfied that I understood exactly what I was signing. And the funds, I asked, how will those be transferred? The Taylors have already wired the full amount to our escrow account. Jennifer explained. As soon as the deed is recorded tomorrow, we'll transfer the funds to your account. You should have access to them by late afternoon. It all seemed so clinical, so straightforward. A house worth nearly $2 million, 5 years of memories, changing hands with a few signatures and a wire transfer. Are there any other questions, Emily? Richard asked, sensing my momentary detachment. I refocused on the documents before me. Just one. The note says vacant possession will be delivered at closing, but Michael and Olivia's belongings are still in the house. What exactly does that mean for the Taylors? Thomas from the title company cleared his throat. Technically, vacant possession means the property should be empty of occupants and their belongings. However, in practice, there's often some flexibility, particularly in situations like this where the previous occupants are unaware of the sale. The Taylors have indicated they're willing to allow a reasonable period for belongings to be removed, Jennifer added. They understand the unusual circumstances. I nodded, relief mingling with guilt. At least Michael and Olivia wouldn't be completely stranded, their possessions inaccessible. Now, about tomorrow, Richard continued. The closing is scheduled for 9:00 a.m. at the Registry of Deeds. I'll meet you there at 8:45. The Taylors and their attorney will be present, as will Jennifer and Thomas. It should take about an hour, possibly less since it's a cash transaction with no lender involvement. And after that? I asked. After that, the house officially belongs to the Taylors. They'll receive the keys, and their occupancy begins immediately. So simple, so final. As the meeting concluded and we all stood to leave, Jennifer pulled me aside. Emily, I just wanted to say, I've been in real estate for 15 years, and I've never handled a sale quite like this one. But I want you to know that I think you're doing the right thing, standing up for yourself, refusing to be taken advantage of. It takes courage. Her words warmed me. Thank you, Jennifer, for everything. Back in my apartment, I made one final sweep, ensuring I'd packed everything I wanted to take with me to Cape Cod. My suitcases stood ready by the door I'd be leaving directly after the closing tomorrow, driving down to the Cape to begin my self-imposed retreat. Barbara had offered to come with me, to provide moral support during these first days of transition, but I declined. This was a journey I needed to undertake alone, at least initially. Time to think, to process, to begin healing. As evening fell, I made myself a simple dinner, a grilled cheese sandwich and tomato soup, comfort food from my childhood, and ate on the balcony, watching the harbor lights twinkle in the distance. My phone chimed with a text message. Michael again. Heading to the airport soon. Can't wait to be home. Lily keeps asking when she'll see her grandma next. Dinner tomorrow, 7 p.m. I stared at the message, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. Lily, my sweet granddaughter, innocent in all of this. I hadn't allowed myself to think too deeply about how my actions would affect her, how they might limit my access to her in the future. No, I reminded myself, this wasn't about Lily. This was about setting boundaries with Michael and Olivia, and if they chose to use Lily as a pawn, to restrict my relationship with her in retaliation, well, that would only confirm I'd made the right decision. Still, the mention of her sent a pang through my heart. Would she understand why Grandma wasn't coming over anymore? Would Michael and Olivia poison her against me? I left the message unanswered, set my phone aside, and focused on the horizon. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, its own emotions. Tonight, I would allow myself this moment of peace before the storm. After dinner, I prepared for bed, following my usual nighttime routine with deliberate care, washing my face, applying the moisturizer Barbara had given me for Christmas, setting out my clothes for the morning. The outfit I'd chosen for the closing wasn't my business armor, but something else entirely, a simple teal dress I'd bought years ago but rarely worn because Olivia had once commented that the color washed me out. It was comfortable, elegant in its simplicity, and most importantly, it was something I'd chosen for myself, not to please anyone else. As I lay in bed, waiting for sleep to come, I thought about the note I'd prepared to leave on the door tomorrow. Not a letter of explanation or apology, just a simple statement of fact. This property has been sold. New owners, James and Rebecca Taylor. All inquiries should be directed to Richard Martinez, attorney at law. Clear, direct, final. I'd also written a second, more personal note that I'd debated leaving inside the house for Michael to find. In the end, I'd decided against it. There was nothing I could say in a note that would adequately explain my actions or feelings. Some conversations needed to happen face to face, if they happened at all. Tomorrow, I would close this chapter of my life. The house would no longer be mine, and Michael and Olivia would face the consequences of their actions. Whether those consequences led to growth or bitterness was up to them. As for me, I was already growing, already changing. For the first time in years, I was putting myself first. And despite the pain, despite the uncertainty of what lay ahead, that felt right. With that thought, I finally drifted off to sleep, dreaming not of the past but of possibilities: a small cottage by the sea, a garden full of flowers, a life rebuilt on my own terms. I woke before my alarm on Tuesday morning. August 21st. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden glow through my bedroom window. For a moment, I lay still, taking in the significance of the day ahead. By sunset, the house would no longer be mine or Michael and Olivia's. By sunset, everything would be different. I rose and made coffee, stronger than usual. My hands were steady as I packed the last of my overnight things into a small duffel bag. The larger suitcases were already in my car, ready for my drive to Cape Cod after the closing. At precisely 8:30 a.m., I left my apartment for the last time. I'd given notice to my landlord the previous week. My lease would officially end at the end of the month. After my stay on the Cape, I planned to find a smaller place closer to the water, something just for me, a fresh start. Richard was waiting outside the Registry of Deeds when I arrived, his familiar figure standing tall in a well-tailored gray suit. "Good morning, Emily," he greeted me warmly. "Ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, adjusting my teal dress. I'd decided against jewelry this morning, except for my wedding ring, the one thing I never removed. Robert might have been gone for 12 years, but his presence still gave me strength on days like today. Inside, Jennifer Wong was already seated at a large conference table with the Taylors and their attorney, a young woman whose name I didn't catch in the flurry of introductions. Thomas Chen from the title company arrived moments later, his arms full of folders. "We have all the documents prepared," he announced, distributing packets to everyone at the table. "Once we've reviewed and signed everything, I'll take the deed to be recorded, and the property will officially transfer." The next hour passed in a blur of signatures and initials. I signed my name dozens of times, formally relinquishing ownership of the house I had helped my son buy, the house that had become a symbol of my exploitation rather than my love. Finally, Thomas gathered the signed documents, double-checking that every required signature was in place. "Congratulations," he said, looking around the table. "Once these are recorded, which should take about 20 minutes, the sale will be complete." James Taylor stood and extended his hand to me. "Thank you, Emily. We promise to take good care of the house," Rebecca added. "And remember what we said, you're welcome to visit any time." I shook their hands, touched by their kindness. "Thank you. I think this is a clean break for me, but I appreciate the offer." As Thomas left to record the deed, Richard pulled me aside. "The wire transfer to your account should be completed by this afternoon. $185 million minus the fees we discussed. A nice nest egg for your new beginning." I nodded, still trying to process the reality of it all. "What happens now with Michael and Olivia?" Richard's expression turned serious. "According to the information we have, their flight lands in Boston at 4:30 p.m. They'll likely head straight home to what used to be home and discover the situation then. I've prepared for any potential legal challenges, but honestly, Emily, they don't have a leg to stand on. The sale was completely legal, and you were well within your rights. And their belongings. The Taylors have generously agreed to allow them 7 days to remove personal items. After that, anything remaining becomes the Taylors' property to donate or dispose of as they see fit. I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It wasn't vindictiveness that had motivated me. I didn't want Michael and Olivia to lose their possessions along with the house. I just wanted them to understand that actions have consequences, that relationships require reciprocity. Thank you, Richard, for everything. He smiled warmly. You're a remarkable woman, Emily Smith. It's been my privilege to help you reclaim your power. As we said our goodbyes and I prepared to leave, Jennifer handed me a small envelope. The Taylors asked me to give you this, she said. They said to open it when you reach the Cape. Curious, I slipped the envelope into my purse, thanked Jennifer for her help, and walked out of the registry building into the bright August sunshine, a woman with no mortgage to pay, no house to maintain, and no financial ties to those who had taken advantage of her generosity for far too long. Freedom felt like sunshine on my face after years in shadow. The drive to Cape Cod took longer than expected due to summer tourist traffic, but I didn't mind. I rolled down the windows, turned up the radio, and sang along to oldies stations, feeling lighter with each mile that stretched between me and Boston. I'd rented a small cottage in Wellfleet for a month, a charming place with weathered cedar shingles and a deck overlooking the bay. As I pulled into the gravel driveway around 2:00 p.m., I felt a sense of rightness, as if this was exactly where I needed to be. The cottage owner, a friendly woman named Carol, met me with the keys and a brief tour. The space was perfect cozy but not cramped, with large windows that flooded the rooms with light and caught the sea breeze. There's a path down to the beach just behind the cottage, Carol pointed out, and town is about a mile that way if you want to walk in for dinner or groceries. After she left, I unpacked my essentials and made myself a cup of tea. Taking it out to the deck, I settled into an Adirondack chair and finally opened the envelope Jennifer had given me. Inside was a card with a watercolor painting of Cape Cod on the front. I opened it to find a handwritten note. Dear Emily, we wanted you to know how much your courage has inspired us. Starting over isn't easy at any age, but you've shown that it's never too late to stand up for yourself and demand respect. The house will always carry your spirit, the love you put into it, even if that love wasn't properly valued by others. We promise to fill it with the kindness and appreciation it deserves. If you ever want to visit, our door is always open to you. In the meantime, please accept our small gift to help you create new memories in your fresh start. Warmly, Rebecca and James Taylor. Beneath their signatures was a gift certificate for a local art gallery in Wellfleet, a generous amount that would allow me to select a piece for my new home, wherever that might eventually be. Tears welled in my eyes, not of sadness, but of gratitude. These strangers had shown me more understanding and respect in our brief acquaintance than my own son and daughter-in-law had in years. I carefully returned the card to its envelope, promising myself I would visit the gallery soon. For now, though, I was content to sit on the deck, watching seagulls wheel overhead and small boats bob in the distance, letting the rhythm of the waves soothe my soul. My phone, which I'd placed on the small table beside me, buzzed with a text message. Barbara, checking in, all done at the registry, how are you feeling? I smiled, appreciating her thoughtfulness. All done. I'm at the cottage in Wellfleet now. It's perfect. Feeling peaceful. She replied almost immediately. Peaceful is good. The calm after the storm. Or maybe before the next one when they find out. I hadn't allowed myself to think too much about what was happening in Boston. Michael and Olivia's flight would be landing soon. They would take an Uber home, suitcases full of cruise souvenirs, heads full of sun-drenched memories, and find themselves locked out of a house that was no longer theirs. Whatever happens next is up to them, I texted back. I've done what I needed to do for me. Barbara's response made me smile. Damn right you have. Now enjoy that ocean view and don't look back. I set my phone aside, determined to follow her advice. The past was behind me. The future uncertain but full of possibility lay ahead. And the present moment, This peaceful afternoon by the sea was a gift I intended to savor. I spent the remainder of the afternoon exploring my temporary home and the surrounding area. The cottage was even more charming than the photos had suggested, rustic yet comfortable, with quirky touches like a collection of antique glass bottles on the windowsills that caught the light in blues and greens, casting colored shadows across the wooden floors. Around 6:00 p.m., I walked the mile into town to find dinner. Wellfleet was bustling with summer visitors, its main street lined with art galleries, small shops, and seafood restaurants. I chose a casual place with outdoor seating and ordered oysters, a Cape Cod specialty, and a glass of white wine. As I sat there, watching people stroll by, I realized it had been years since I'd dined alone by choice rather than circumstance. After Robert died, I'd avoided restaurants, finding the sight of couples and families too painful a reminder of what I'd lost. Then, as Michael grew up and started his own family, I'd been the third wheel, the extra place setting at their table, the afterthought invitation. But tonight, I wasn't lonely. I was independent. There's a profound difference. I savored each oyster, each sip of wine, each moment of being exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do. No one to please but myself. My phone, which I'd silenced during dinner, buzzed persistently in my purse. I ignored it until I'd finished eating, paid the bill, and started the walk back to the cottage. Only then, halfway down the darkening beach path, did I pull it out to check. 15 missed calls, 23 text messages, 2 voicemails, Michael, Olivia, Richard, Sarah. Even Charlotte Weber had called. They knew. I took a deep breath, the salty air filling my lungs, and continued walking toward the cottage. The messages could wait. I wasn't going to let this moment, this peaceful evening by the sea, be tainted by anger or accusations. Once inside, I changed into comfortable clothes, made a cup of chamomile tea, and finally settled on the deck to deal with the barrage of communication. I started with Richard's text. They've contacted me, as expected. I've explained the situation clearly. Call when you can, but no rush. Everything is under control. Then Sarah. Michael called me in a complete state. What did you do? Emily, call me. I ignored that one for now. Barbara had texted too. The shit has officially hit the fan. Michael called looking for you. I played dumb. Call me if you need moral support. Then there were Michael's messages, a progression from confusion to disbelief to anger. Mom, there's some kind of mistake. We can't get into the house. Call me ASAP. What's going on? There's a note saying the house was sold. This isn't funny. Just talk to Richard. Is this for real? You sold our house. Call me right now. I can't believe you would do this. After everything we've done for you. That last one made me laugh out loud. Everything they'd done for me. The sheer audacity of it was almost impressive. Olivia hadn't texted, but she'd left a voicemail. I hesitated before playing it, bracing myself for the vitriol I knew would be coming. Emily, her voice was cold, controlled. I don't know what you think you're accomplishing with this stunt, but I want you to know that you've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. Michael is devastated. Lily is confused and upset. If you had issues, there were adult ways to handle them. I always knew you resented me, but I never thought you'd stoop this low. Don't contact us again. Our lawyer will be in touch. I deleted the message without a second thought. Olivia's attempt to claim the moral high ground was as predictable as it was laughable. The second voicemail was from Michael, his voice breaking with emotion. Mom, please call me. I don't understand why you would do this. Where are we supposed to go? What about Lily? She's asking for her bed, her toys. Please, Mom, we need to talk about this. That one was harder to dismiss. The mention of Lily, my innocent granddaughter caught in the middle of adult conflicts, sent a pang through my heart. But I reminded myself that this was temporary disruption, not permanent harm. Michael and Olivia had resources, friends they could stay with, money for a hotel, family who would help. They weren't destitute or truly homeless. They were simply experiencing the consequences of their actions for perhaps the first time in their adult lives. I decided to respond only to Richard, sending a brief text. Thanks for handling things. I'm fine. Enjoying the Cape. We'll call tomorrow." Then I silenced my phone, set it aside, and returned my attention to the night sky, the sound of waves breaking on the shore, the taste of chamomile on my tongue. Tomorrow would be soon enough to deal with the aftermath. Tonight was still mine. I slept soundly that night, lulled by the rhythmic sound of waves and the knowledge that I had finally taken control of my own life. When I woke, the sun was already high in the sky, streaming through the cottage windows. After a leisurely breakfast on the deck, fresh bread from a local bakery, ripe peaches, and coffee, I steeled myself to check my phone. More missed calls, more messages, but a new name caught my eye. Jennifer Wong. "Emily, just want to let you know that Michael and Olivia showed up at our office this morning, demanding to know where you are. We didn't disclose your location. Of course, the Taylors have allowed them to begin removing personal belongings today, with supervision. Thought you should know." I appreciated Jennifer's discretion and the update on the situation. At least Michael and Olivia would be able to retrieve their things, which was more consideration than they'd shown me when they'd left me standing at that cruise terminal. Next, I called Richard, who answered on the first ring. "Emily, good morning. I was hoping you'd call." "I'm sorry I didn't get back to you last night," I said. "I needed some time to process everything." "Completely understandable. You've been through a lot." "How bad is it?" I asked, bracing myself for the answer. Richard chuckled softly. "Well, I've had more pleasant meetings. I'll say that. Michael and Olivia arrived at my office first thing this morning with Charlotte Weber in tow. They're threatening legal action. Of course, though Weber knows they don't have a case. It's more bluster than substance." "What kind of legal action?" "They're claiming coercion, fraud, undue influence, throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. But the facts are clear. You were the legal co-owner. You had every right to sell, and all proper procedures were followed. They're just angry and looking for someone to blame besides themselves." I sighed, gazing out at the ocean. "I never wanted it to come to this, Richard. I just wanted them to understand that they couldn't keep taking from me while excluding me from their lives. I know, Emily, and for what it's worth, I think Michael is beginning to realize that Olivia is another story. She spent most of the meeting trying to portray you as a vindictive, mentally unstable woman acting out of spite. But even Charlotte Weber seemed uncomfortable with that narrative. And what happens now? Now they find a new place to live. The Taylors have generously allowed them a week to remove their belongings, but they can't stay in the house. I understand they're temporarily staying with friends. And Lily, my granddaughter." Richard's voice softened. "Michael did mention her. She's confused. Of course, children thrive on stability, and hers has been disrupted. But children are also resilient. She'll adjust to their new living situation, wherever that ends up being." After thanking Richard for his update and support, I made one more call to Barbara. There she is. Barbara's cheerful voice was like a tonic. "How's life on the Cape? Peaceful?" I said. "At least until I checked my messages this morning. Ah, yes. Hurricane Michael and Tropical Storm Olivia made landfall. I take it, I couldn't help but laugh at her weather analogy. "Something like that. Richard says they're threatening legal action." "Of course they are," Barbara scoffed. "People like Olivia always think they're above consequences. But it won't go anywhere. You did everything by the book." "I know. I didn't expect to feel so guilty," Barbara suggested. "Emily Smith, you stop that right now. You have nothing to feel guilty about. They brought this on themselves with years of disrespect and manipulation." "Not guilty, exactly," I clarified, searching for the right word. "More like sad. Sad that it had to come to this. Sad that my relationship with my son has been damaged. Maybe irreparably." Barbara was quiet for a moment. "The relationship was already damaged. This just brought it to the surface. And sometimes things need to break completely before they can be rebuilt properly." Her words resonated with a truth I hadn't been able to articulate. "You're right. I just hope that rebuilding is possible. Eventually, for Lily's sake. If nothing else." "Give it time," Barbara advised. "Right now, they're in shock and anger mode. Let the dust settle. Focus on yourself for once. Lord knows you've spent enough years focusing on them." After our call, I decided to take Barbara's advice and focus on enjoying my day. I walked into town again, this time visiting the art gallery where the Taylors had given me a gift certificate. The owner, a woman with silver hair and an artist's keen eye, helped me select a beautiful watercolor of a Cape Cod sunset, all purples and oranges reflecting on calm waters. "It's called New Horizon," she told me as she carefully wrapped the painting. "The artist says she painted it during a major life transition. Seemed fitting." I smiled, appreciating the synchronicity. Perfect. Him. The next few days passed in a blur of small pleasures and quiet reflection. I explored the beaches and nature trails around Wellfleet, ate seafood at different local restaurants, and even attended a poetry reading at a nearby bookstore. Each day, I checked my messages, half expecting more angry communications from Michael or Olivia. But there was nothing. The silence was both a relief and a concern. What were they planning? Had they given up on legal action? Were they simply licking their wounds, or plotting their next move on Friday afternoon? As I was returning from a long walk on the beach, I saw an unfamiliar car parked next to mine in the cottage driveway. My heart skipped a beat. Had Michael found me? As I approached cautiously, the driver's door opened and Sarah stepped out. "Before you say anything," she began, holding up her hands in a placating gesture, "I'm not here to lecture you or take sides. I just wanted to check on my sister." I stood there, beach sand still clinging to my feet, hair tangled from the wind, unsure how to respond. Sarah and I had always been close growing up, but our adult lives had taken different paths. Her marriage to Tom had been stable and comfortable, their 2 children well-behaved and successful. She'd never faced the challenges I had raising a child alone after becoming a widow at 40, building a career while being a single mother, navigating the often painful dynamics of being the extra in her child's new family. "How did you find me?" I finally asked. Sarah looked sheepish. "Barbara, don't be mad at her. I wore her down. I've been calling her daily since Tuesday. Worried sick about you." I sighed, resigning myself to the inevitable conversation. "Come inside. I'll make tea." Inside the cottage, Sarah took in the cozy space with appreciative eyes. "This is lovely. Emily. Very you." I busied myself with the kettle and teapot, gathering my thoughts. "Why are you really here?" Sarah. She sat at the small kitchen table, her expression serious. "I've seen Michael. He and Olivia and Lily are staying with us until they find a new place." That was unexpected. Sarah and Tom lived in the suburbs, in a large house with plenty of room. But I hadn't thought Michael would turn to them. He and Tom had never been particularly close. "How are they?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral as I set 2 mugs of tea on the table and joined her. "Shocked, angry, hurt." Sarah stirred honey into her tea. "Michael can't understand why you didn't talk to him first, why you took such drastic action without warning." I felt a flicker of irritation. "There were warnings, Sarah, years of them. Every time they excluded me from family events, every time they used my money without acknowledgement, every time Olivia made it clear I was an inconvenience rather than a mother-in-law." "I know," Sarah said, surprising me. "Michael told me about the cruise, about leaving you at the port. He's ashamed now, says he let Olivia convince him it was reasonable because you'd take over the vacation otherwise." "Take over," I repeated, incredulous. "I just wanted to be included in a family trip that I helped pay for." Sarah nodded. "I know. I told him exactly that. Said if he'd done that to me, I'd have done worse than sell his house." I blinked, taken aback by her support. "You did, Emily. I may not have approved of how you handled things initially, but the more I learn about what's been going on, the more I understand why you felt you had no other choice." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Michael showed me the emails, the ones Olivia sent to that lawyer about adverse possession. That was the last straw for me." "You saw those?" I hadn't told Sarah about finding those emails. "Michael found them when they were packing their things. Apparently Olivia had kept them in her desk drawer. He confronted her about it, and she tried to justify it as protecting their interests." Sarah rolled her eyes. "He didn't buy it. They had a huge fight right in our living room." I absorbed this information, trying to picture Michael standing up to Olivia, questioning her actions. It was a side of him I hadn't seen in years. "So they're fighting?" I asked, unsure how to feel about this development. Sarah nodded. "Olivia is still trying to paint you as the villain in all this, but Michael is starting to see through her manipulation. He found the credit card statement too, with the spa charge. When he asked Olivia about it, she claimed you had offered to pay for spa treatments before the cruise." "That's a lie," I said flatly. "I never offered any such thing." "I know. Michael knows too. I think he's seeing Olivia clearly for the first time. And he's not liking what he sees." We talked for hours, the afternoon sun moving across the cottage as Sarah filled me in on everything that had happened since Tuesday. Michael and Olivia had initially stayed in a hotel, but the expense had quickly become unsustainable. When they'd reached out to Olivia's parents for help, they'd been told to figure it out yourselves, apparently. Olivia's manipulative tendencies were well known to her family, so they'd turned to Sarah and Tom, who had offered their guest room and basement playroom for Lily. The arrangement was meant to be temporary, just until Michael and Olivia found an apartment, but it had already created tension in the household. "Olivia expects to be waited on," Sarah confided. "She barely helps with meals or cleaning, spends hours on her phone posting cryptic social media updates about betrayal and toxic family dynamics. Tom is ready to throw her out, but we're concerned about Lily." "How is Lily handling all this?" I asked, the question that had been weighing most heavily on my heart. Sarah's expression softened. "She misses her toys, her room, but kids are adaptable. She's actually enjoying the extra attention from her cousins, and Tom set up a swing for her in the backyard." She hesitated, then added, "She asks about you, though. Wants to know when Grandma is coming back." Tears pricked my eyes. "What did Michael tell her? That you're on a trip, and that everyone needs some time to figure things out. He didn't badmouth you. Emily, whatever else is going on, he's not poisoning Lily against you." It was a small comfort, but a significant one. As the conversation wound down, Sarah asked the question I'd been dreading. "Will you see them talk to Michael at least?" I stared into my now cold tea. "I don't know, Sarah, not yet. I need more time." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "That's fair. Just don't wait too long. Pride and hurt can calcify if we let them." As she prepared to leave, Sarah hugged me tightly. "I'm on your side, Em. I always have been, even when I didn't understand your choices." I watched her drive away, feeling both unsettled and relieved by her visit. The situation in Boston was evolving in ways I hadn't anticipated. Michael questioning Olivia's actions, their relationship showing cracks. Lily safe but confused. It was all so complicated, so messy. But then, families always are. The weekend passed quietly. I continued my routine of beach walks and small excursions, but Sarah's visit had shifted something inside me. I found myself thinking more about Michael, about Lily, even about Olivia. What would happen to them now? Where would they live? How would this upheaval affect their relationships with each other and with me? On Sunday morning, I received a text from an unexpected source, James Taylor. "Emily, just wanted to let you know that Michael and Olivia have removed most of their belongings from the house. They were respectful and left everything in good condition. Thought you might want to know." I appreciated his thoughtfulness in keeping me informed, especially since he had no obligation to do so. I sent a brief thank you in reply. Later that day, I was sitting on the beach, watching the waves roll in, when my phone rang. Michael's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the decline button. But something, perhaps Sarah's warning not to wait too long, made me answer instead. "Hello, Michael?" A brief silence, as if he was surprised I'd picked up. "Mom, hi, I wasn't sure you'd answer." "I almost didn't," I admitted, keeping my voice neutral. "I understand." He paused, and I could hear him taking a deep breath. "Mom, I need to talk to you, not over the phone, face to face." "I'm not ready for that. Michael, please, Mom, just hear me out. I'm not angry anymore. I just want to understand." And I want you to understand some things too. I watched a seagull dive into the water, emerging with a small fish in its beak. What things? Things about me and Olivia. About why I've been the way I've been. I need to explain and apologize, and his voice cracked slightly. I miss you, Mom, and Lily misses you too. The mention of Lily, as always, tugged at my heart. Where is Lily now? With Sarah and Tom, Olivia's gone back to her parents for a few days, to clear her head, she says. Interesting. And you? I'm staying at Sarah's too. But I could drive down to the Cape tomorrow. Meet you somewhere public, if that makes you more comfortable. I considered his request. Part of me wanted to refuse, to make him wait longer, to let him feel more of the pain and exclusion I had experienced. But another part, the part that had raised him, loved him, taught him to ride a bike and helped him with his math homework, wanted to hear what he had to say. There's a cafe in Wellfleet, on Main Street, I said finally. The Blue Willow. Tomorrow at noon. The relief in his voice was palpable. I'll be there. Thank you. Mom, after we hung up, I sat on the beach until the sun began to set, thinking about what I wanted from this meeting. Apologies, yes. Acknowledgement of the pain he'd caused, certainly. But more than that, I wanted honesty. I wanted to understand how my loving son had become someone who could leave his mother standing alone at a cruise terminal. The next morning dawned clear and bright, a perfect Cape Cod day. I dressed carefully in white linen pants and a blue blouse, casual but put together. This wasn't about impressing Michael or appearing vulnerable. It was about meeting him as an equal, a woman who respected herself enough to demand respect from others. I arrived at the Blue Willow 15 minutes early, selecting a table on the outdoor patio where I could watch for Michael's arrival. I ordered an iced tea and tried to calm my racing heart. At precisely noon, I saw him walking up the street, my son, looking more haggard than I'd ever seen him. His usual confident stride was absent, replaced by a slightly slumped posture. He spotted me and raised his hand in an awkward half-wave. Hi, Mom, he said as he reached the table, hesitating before taking the seat across from me. Michael, I acknowledged, studying his face. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he looked like he'd lost weight since I'd last seen him just 2 weeks ago. A waitress appeared to take his order, just coffee. Black, and then we were alone, facing each other across the small table. You look good, he said finally. The Cape agrees with you. It does, I replied. It's peaceful here. An awkward silence fell between us. I waited, letting him be the one to break it. This meeting was his request. Let him do the work of starting the difficult conversation. Finally, he spoke. I found the emails, the ones Olivia sent to Charlotte Weber about adverse possession. I nodded but said nothing. I had no idea. Mom, I swear to you, I knew nothing about that plan. His eyes, so like his father's, pleaded for belief. You expect me to believe Olivia was plotting to legally take the house from me, and you knew nothing about it. My voice was calm but skeptical. Michael ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. I knew she'd talked to a lawyer about securing our investment, as she put it, but she told me it was just about making sure the house would pass to Lily if anything happened to us. I never knew she was planning to push you out. I considered his words, searching his face for signs of deception. And the credit card, the spa charge on the cruise. He had the grace to look ashamed. That was wrong. Completely wrong. Olivia said you'd offered to pay for spa treatments before the cruise, and I didn't question it. I should have, but I didn't. You've stopped questioning a lot of things when it comes to Olivia. I observed. His eyes dropped to the table. Yes, the waitress returned with his coffee, creating another pause in our conversation. When she left, Michael looked up at me, his expression more resolute. Mom, I need to explain something. It's not an excuse, but I want you to understand. When Dad died, you became my rock. You were so strong, so capable. You handled everything: the funeral, the finances, my teenage mood swings. You never seemed to need help or support yourself." I frowned, unsure where he was going with this. Then I met Olivia, and she was different. She needed me in ways you never did. She made me feel strong, necessary. When she started suggesting that you were too involved in our lives, that you were trying to control things, it felt like I was finally becoming a man, standing on my own. By pushing away your mother, I couldn't keep the hurt from my voice. "I know how it sounds," he said quickly. "It's only recently that I've started to understand the dynamic myself. Olivia made it seem like establishing boundaries with you was normal, healthy. But the boundaries kept getting tighter, the exclusions more frequent. Until you left me standing alone at a cruise terminal." I finished for him. He winced. "Yes, that was the wake-up call for me. Even before all this with the house. Seeing you there, watching us sail away. I knew it was wrong. I tried to text you after, to make amends. But I can see now how hollow that must have seemed." I took a sip of my tea, processing his words. "So what changed? Why are you here now? Saying all this? Finding those emails changed everything." Seeing in black and white how Olivia had been planning to take legal control of the house, reading her describe you as difficult to manage, he shook his head. It was like scales falling from my eyes. I started remembering other things, how she'd subtly discourage me from calling you, how she'd roll her eyes when you offered to help with Lily, how she'd always have a reason why you couldn't join us for holidays or vacations. "And you never noticed this pattern before." He looked truly regretful. "I didn't want to see it. It was easier to go along, to keep the peace. Olivia can be difficult when she doesn't get her way." I nearly laughed at the understatement. "So I've noticed. When we found out you'd sold the house, Olivia was furious, but I was just shocked, confused. I couldn't understand why you'd do something so drastic without talking to me first." He leaned forward, his eyes earnest. "But then Sarah made me really think about it from your perspective. All those years of supporting us financially, being shut out emotionally. The cruise was just the last straw, wasn't it?" I nodded slowly. "It was the moment I realized that no matter what I gave money, time, love, I would never be truly part of your family, that I was useful but not valued." "I'm so sorry, Mom," he said, his voice breaking. "I've been a terrible son." For the first time since we sat down, I reached across the table and took his hand. "You haven't been a terrible son, Michael. You've been a misguided one. There's a difference." We talked for nearly 2 hours, untangling years of misunderstandings, hurts, and manipulations. Michael was more open than I'd ever seen him, admitting his weaknesses, acknowledging how he'd allowed Olivia to drive a wedge between us. "What happens now?" I asked as our conversation wound down. "With you and Olivia? I mean," he looked troubled. "I don't know. We've been fighting constantly since this happened. She still insists you acted out of spite, that I should be furious with you instead of questioning her actions. She refuses to take any responsibility." He sighed deeply. "I suggested couples counseling, but she says I'm the one who needs therapy for letting my mother manipulate me." "And Lily, how is she in all this?" His expression softened at the mention of his daughter. "She's resilient, confused, but adapting. She asks about you a lot. Wants to know when she'll see Grandma again." The question hung in the air between us, unspoken but clear. "When would I see Lily again? I'd like to see her," I said quietly. "When you feel it's appropriate." Michael's eyes lit up. "She'd love that. Maybe you could come up to Boston this weekend. We could meet at a park or something, somewhere neutral." I considered the suggestion. That might work, but Michael, I need to be clear about something. I'm willing to rebuild our relationship, yours and mine and Lily's. But I need time before I'm ready to include Olivia in that. I need to see real change, real acknowledgement of the harm she's caused." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And to be honest, given how things are between us right now, it might be better if it's just me and Lily anyway." As we prepared to leave, Michael hesitated, then asked, "The house, do you regret selling it?" I thought carefully before answering. I regret that it came to that. I regret the pain it's caused, especially for Lily. But do I regret standing up for myself, refusing to be taken advantage of any longer? No. I don't regret that at all. He nodded, accepting my answer. The new owners seem nice. They're letting us take our time getting everything out. The Taylors, I confirmed. Yes, they are good people. We walked to our cars together, the air between us lighter than when we'd arrived, though still heavy with unresolved issues and uncertain futures. Before we parted, Michael hugged me a real hug, tight and sincere, not the perfunctory embrace he'd given me in recent years. "I love you, Mom. I'm going to make this right somehow." I hugged him back, allowing myself to feel the familiar contours of my son in my arms. "I love you too, Michael. We'll figure it out, one step at a time." As I watched him drive away, I felt a complex mixture of emotions: hope, wariness, sadness, relief. Our relationship had been fractured, perhaps irreparably in some ways, but there was also the possibility of something new emerging from the wreckage, something healthier and more honest than what had existed before. Only time would tell. The remainder of my month on Cape Cod passed in a blur of small pleasures and quiet reflection. I met Michael and Lily at a playground in Boston as planned, a reunion filled with Lily's excited chatter about her cousins and the swing set Uncle Tom had built for her. Watching her play, her blonde curls bouncing in the sunlight, I felt a surge of gratitude that this precious relationship, at least, could be preserved. Michael and I established a new rhythm: phone calls every few days, honest conversations about his situation with Olivia, which continued to deteriorate, and plans for more visits with Lily. He had found a small apartment near Sarah's house and was preparing to move in alone, a trial separation that Olivia had reluctantly agreed to after weeks of escalating conflict. "I need space to figure things out," he explained during one of our calls, "to understand how I let things get so twisted between us, between you and me, between everyone." I supported his decision, though I was careful not to gloat or express satisfaction at the troubles in his marriage. Whatever happened between Michael and Olivia was their journey now. My focus was on rebuilding my relationship with my son and granddaughter. As my rental period on the Cape neared its end, I began searching for a new place to live, somewhere that would be mine alone, chosen for my preferences rather than proximity to Michael's family or convenience for others. After viewing several properties, I settled on a charming one-bedroom condominium in a historic building in Plymouth, close enough to Boston for regular visits with Lily, but far enough away to establish my own independent life. On my last day in Wellfleet, I walked along the beach one final time, reflecting on the incredible journey of the past month. I had arrived broken, betrayed, seeking refuge from the storm of emotions that had threatened to overwhelm me. I was leaving stronger, clearer, ready to build a new life on my own terms. Back at the cottage, I packed the last of my belongings, including the watercolor painting I'd selected with the Taylor's gift certificate New Horizon, now professionally framed and ready to hang in my new home. As I loaded everything into my car, I received a text from Barbara. "Welcome party at your new place tomorrow. Sarah and I will bring champagne. No arguments." I smiled, typing back, "Wouldn't dream of arguing. See you tomorrow." The drive to Plymouth took just over 2 hours. Traffic light on this weekday afternoon. My new condominium was on the 3rd floor of a converted textile mill, with exposed brick walls, tall windows, and a small balcony overlooking a park. The building had been updated with modern amenities while preserving its historic character, much like I was doing with my own life. I reflected. The moving company had delivered the few pieces of furniture I'd kept from my Boston apartment the day before, arranging them according to my instructions. The space already felt like home, my home, designed for my comfort and happiness rather than anyone else's. I spent that evening unpacking essential items and arranging my small kitchen. Around 8:00 p.m., my phone rang. Michael. "Hey, Mom, just wanted to check that you arrived safely." "I did. The place is perfect. You and Lily will have to visit soon." "We'd like that," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "Lily's been working on a drawing for your refrigerator in the new place." We chatted for a few minutes about practical matters, my new address, the best route from his apartment, the park nearby that Lily would love. As we were about to hang up, Michael said something that caught me by surprise. "You know, Mom, I've been thinking a lot about Dad lately, about what he would say about all this." Robert had been gone for 12 years, but his presence still lingered in our lives, especially in moments of significance. "What do you think he would say?" I asked softly. Michael was quiet for a moment. "I think he'd be proud of you, for standing up for yourself, for refusing to be taken for granted. Dad always said you were the strongest person he knew, and he was right." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you for saying that, Michael. It's the truth, and I think he'd be disappointed in me, for losing sight of what matters, for forgetting the values you both taught me." "Your father wasn't one to dwell on disappointments," I reminded him. "He believed in learning from mistakes and moving forward." "I'm trying to do that," Michael said, his voice determined. "To be the man he raised me to be, the son you deserve." After we hung up, I sat on my new sofa, looking out at the twinkling lights of Plymouth through my windows, thinking about Robert, about Michael, about the long, winding path that had led me here. The next morning, Barbara and Sarah arrived as promised, arms loaded with champagne, flowers, and enough food to feed a small army. We spent the day laughing, arranging furniture, and hanging pictures, turning the condominium from a space into a home. To Emily, Barbara toasted as we finally collapsed onto the sofa with our champagne flutes. Who taught us all that it's never too late to start over, to demand respect, to rebuild on your own terms? To Emily, Sarah echoed, raising her glass, my brave big sister, who had the courage to lose everything in order to find herself. I looked around at my new home, at these women who had supported me through the darkest time of my life, and felt a profound sense of peace. The journey hadn't been easy. The pain hadn't been simple, but I had emerged stronger, wiser, more authentically myself than I had been in years. To new beginnings, I said, raising my own glass, and to the wisdom that sometimes comes only after the fortress falls. Three months later, on a crisp November afternoon, I sat on a bench in the Plymouth Park across from my condominium, watching Lily chase fallen leaves in the brisk wind. Michael sat beside me, both of us bundled in scarves and jackets against the autumn chill. "Olivia's moving to Chicago," he said quietly, his eyes on his daughter. "Her company offered her a promotion there, and she's taking it." I absorbed this news, careful to keep my expression neutral. "And Lily, we've worked out a custody arrangement. She'll stay with me during the school year, visit Olivia during summers and some holidays." He glanced at me. "It's not ideal for Lily, but Olivia insists this opportunity is too good to pass up." I nodded, unsurprised. Olivia had always prioritized her career and personal advancement over family connections. It was one of the fundamental differences between us. "How do you feel about it?" I asked. Michael sighed. "Relieved, if I'm being honest. The past few months have been difficult. All the fighting, the blame, the resentment. It's better for Lily this way, even if it means less time with her mother." He hesitated, then added, "I'll need help, though, with Lily, school pickups, doctor's appointments, those days when work runs late." "I'm here," I said simply. "Whatever you and Lily need." He smiled, gratitude in his eyes. "I know you are. You always have been. I just didn't appreciate it before." We watched Lily for a while longer, her joyful abandon as she played in the leaves, a reminder of life's simple pleasures. "I found a new house," Michael said eventually. "Nothing fancy, but it has a nice yard for Lily, and it's in a good school district. Settlement is next month." "That's wonderful," I said sincerely. "And this time," he added with a meaningful look, "I'm doing it on my own. No co-signers, no parental bailouts. It's time I stood on my own 2 feet, financially and otherwise." I squeezed his hand, pride swelling in my heart. "Your father would be very proud of you. Michael, And so am I. Grandma, look, Lily called, running toward us with a particularly vibrant red maple leaf. It's the prettiest one in the whole park. It certainly is, sweetheart, I agreed, accepting the leaf as the precious gift it was. We should press it in a book to save it. Can we do that at your house? She asked excitedly. And then have hot chocolate with the tiny marshmallows. That sounds like a perfect plan, I told her, catching Michael's eye over her head. He nodded, smiling. As we walked hand in hand back to my condominium, Lily in the middle, swinging our arms, I felt a deep sense of contentment wash over me. The past year had brought pain and upheaval, difficult choices and painful consequences, but it had also brought clarity, strength, and a new foundation for the relationships that truly mattered. The house of cards had fallen, as such fragile structures inevitably do. But from its collapse, we were building something stronger, more honest, more enduring. Not a house of cards this time, but a home built on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and genuine love. And that made all the difference.